This is the official podcast of the G20 Interfaith Forum, where we discuss the key events, the goals, and the focus of the organization.
Welcome to G20 Interfaith Forum podcast. I'm Mariana Richardson.
And I'm Stuart Bird.
Today we have the privilege of having Anastasia Jespersen. She is so well connected here at IF20. She is the treasurer for G20 Interfaith Forum, the program vice chair, and also the environmental specialist for IF20. We are so grateful that you're willing to come and be on this podcast with us. We're excited for everybody to get to know you, Anastasia.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this opportunity.
Anastasia, we know that you haven't always been with IF20. We know you have a diverse background in education and work experience. Could you help us understand your background and what your life was like before you joined IF20?
Sure. From a professional standpoint, starting first, I have an undergraduate degree in accounting, and I've set up and managed books for various businesses and nonprofit organizations over the years. And I also have a Master of Public Administration degree with an emphasis in finance and local government. And I worked for the state of Texas as a performance auditor. And in that capacity, I spent a lot of time on special projects related to strategic planning and budgeting. I've drawn on my accounting and MPA degrees as I've served in leadership and various support roles in different school districts where we've lived. With my husband and my children and our local communities. And I also have a law degree, and my legal studies and practical experience are primarily focused on international public law and environmental law and peace building. And in addition to my position with the IF20, I'm currently serving on my local county climate and sustainability advisory board, and that's another opportunity for me to draw on my legal training in environmental law.
Well, it's amazing all the things that you're doing. And what led you, though, to IF20? What got you involved with IF20? I know we've been together for a long time, but I would love for the people that are listening to also know kind of how you got into this wonderful organization.
So I actually have you, Mariana, to thank for my introduction to the IF20. And you're aware of this, but I'll just tell the story. We had a mutual friend in law school who introduced us because we were both, non-traditional students. And Mariana told me about the work that she was doing with the IF20, and she suggested that I consider a summer fellowship with the International Center for Law and Religion Studies, where I'd have the opportunity to work with the IF20. And because the IF20's focus on the UN Sustainable Development Goals was a draw, the IF20 has that connection. That was a real draw for me. I appreciate the multifaceted nature of the SDGs, and particularly the impact of climate change and all these global issues. So I found that was very interesting to me, and I wanted to be able to participate. And I also appreciate the emphasis on peace building among religions through collaborative action, and believe that religious faith actors and religious communities do have the power and the responsibility to influence decision makers to do better.
Well, obviously, I feel very strongly about IF22, so I am so glad that you came in to the fold and came to help us because you have done such an amazing job, such a huge impact on IF20.
Thank you.
And it's also inspiring to hear how your background has uniquely prepared you to be in this role here at IF20. Your accounting background, you work with nonprofit groups, your involvement with climate action. And so it's very interesting to hear how you are using your background and using your expertise to help here at this and in this nonprofit organization that you happen to find while you're getting your law degree. Now that you are here, we'd love to hear about your experience that you've had since being here at IF20. What year did you start at IF20? How long has it been?
I started working part-time in 2021.
Okay.
And then switched over to full-time in 2023.
Okay. Okay. So you've spent a few years here, and we know that each year there's many meetings and conferences and events and many things that you've been able to help with. From your perspective, what have you seen as the impact of IF20 since you've joined the organization?
Yeah, it's interesting, Stuart, that question because sometimes it's hard to figure out if you're making any impact because we're dealing with such big issues, and they're global in scope, right? But I think there have been some moments when I've been able to see, wow, this is providing an opportunity for change or for things to move forward or to move or for people to have a recognition. Um, the the IF20's provided an opportunity for government leaders, academics, and others who've not considered the role of religion in policy development and discussion to be exposed to the work that faith actors and religious communities are doing. And I've seen this happen over and over again. And it results in religious communities actually really getting a seat to the table. And it's kind of interesting to see that aha moment in these different individuals. And they're like, oh, wow, I get it, right? And that's cool. And I love that. And I think that IF20 has been instrumental in making that happen. I've also witnessed connections that are made and collaborations that's planned between those who attend and participate in our events. And that increases the potential for these actors to make a difference. And it gives them hope. I think it gives all of us hope that we can actually solve some of these problems. And I think, that's a major impact that we have.
I appreciate what you said there about providing opportunities. Uh, and, one of the objectives of the G20 Interfaith Forum that we have written on our website is that one of the objectives is to foster communication channels between different faiths and sharing ideas, experiences, and the best practices in building peace and harmony. That providing an opportunity, and like you said, you've been able to see specific people form connections that maybe would not have been able to form those connections and communication channels without the forums and meetings that we've been providing.
One of the things that I think has been so powerful since you started with IF20 are three issues that you've really tackled. The first one, of course, is helping us be fiscally more responsible, which I think is really important for all nonprofits. And sometimes nonprofits have a problem with that. And so thank you for all you've done to help us be better in terms of that. But then climate, but then programs. And I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the focus areas that you've had with climate, but also the amazing help that you've been on programs.
So climate, as I stated earlier, is of particular interest to me, and it really is impacting everything, every issue. I think one of the things I've tried to do is move it more into the conversation that we're having and helping people recognize that we need to address this. And we have a climate working group. We have a lot of good people in that working group. In the climate discussion, there are a lot of different perspectives. And there's not always agreement. But I think one of the things I've tried to do is help us to come to agreement on the things that we as the IF20 can promote and discuss and encourage. And I don't know, I guess to some degree, there might be people who would like to see us do more and push more in certain areas, but we have to recognize that we're an organization about bringing people together to find areas where we agree. And in the climate space, this is a little tricky, but I feel like I've tried to push that and still make a legitimate case for what we're going to suggest as policy.
Well, I appreciate that comment because there is so much divisiveness and division right now in our society. And especially since we're dealing with an international nonprofit. And right now, there's just so many pressures for international nonprofit, whether it's political or money. We're all going for the same money. And that also brings a lot of division. So, with all of those different things that are happening, what do you hope for or see as the future for IF20?
So I think one of our strengths as a multi-faith organization, so interfaith, multi-faith, there are lots of interfaith and multi-faith organizations out there, and they do lots of different things. But I think one of our strengths as a multi-faith organization is our emphasis on policy development. And I'd like to see us focus our program efforts on policy discussions, policy brief preparation, and on ways to influence decision makers through these policy documents. And I also hope that this process that we are developing to be able to improve our work in the policy area, I hope it's more inclusive. And there's more intentional engagement through our network of networks that can help us find young professionals and women who are doing good work on global issues that we're addressing. And we need to see these people and we need to give them a seat at the table. And if we really truly want to find sustainable solutions, their perspectives need to be part of the conversation. And I want to see the IF20 I want people outside to see the IF20 as an organization that does serious work and finds the best ideas and appreciates many perspectives and shapes government policy.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Just a brief note, you mentioned impacting policy. After each forum and every year, the IF20 constructs a policy brief. And so we invite our listeners to visit our website and visit the policy briefs and read about the discussions and the action items that have been identified at these forums to see what action is being taken. We invite our listeners to do that. And then, like you said, Anastasia, the more voices we have, the more good we can do and the more we can understand the issues that we have. And so we also invite our listeners to find ways to contribute, and we hope to be providing those opportunities.
Before we end this episode, I would really like you to just spend a moment, Anastasia. We do have a listenership. And is there anything that you would like to tell our listeners about IF20 or something that they can do in their help for IF20?
So I think about this a lot because, when people ask me about what I do, almost always they're like, wow, that's really cool. And then the next question they ask is, so how do you fund that? And my response is, donations. And so that's always a way that you can help the organization, any nonprofit organization. But also letting people know about our organization and what we're doing. And if you know someone who might be an important person for us to connect with, reach out and let us know. We have this network of networks. We talk about that's one of the parts of our mission is to grow this network of networks, to bring people in and to connect people to be able to address global issues. And so we are very open to working and meeting other people, and I would encourage others to come to us and to connect with us.
I love that. Thank you. Anastasia, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast, but also just being a part of IF20. We appreciate the sacrifice, but also we appreciate your knowledge and expertise that really has made a difference in this organization. So thank you. And I'm just glad our listeners got to meet you and get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you. Thank you
So
again.
thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
The podcast provides information and discussions on the G20 Interfaith Forum, but the views expressed are those of the individuals involved and not necessarily the official stance of the forum.
The content is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice or expert recommendations. Listeners should exercise personal responsibility, seek professional guidance, and conduct further research when making decisions based on the podcast.
The information shared may not always reflect the most current developments, and external links or resources are provided for additional information but are not endorsed or controlled by the podcast.
By listening to the podcast, listeners acknowledge and accept these disclaimers. Please be aware that the content of this podcast may be subject to copyright. Unauthorized copy, distribution, and reproduction of any part of the podcast is prohibited.